Yo, what's up, boys and girls? It's Swolelax here, and I'm back at it again with another video. This time, something just a little bit different. Today, we have a deck profile for you. So this past weekend, I participated in one of the first and largest Master Duel tournaments. Most of you guys might already know this by now, or might have been participating in the tournament yourself, but if you do not know, the homie Swag Kage put on a 250 plus person tournament for the celebration and start of Master Duel. It was a lot of fun to play in. I had a great time, and thank you Swag Kage so much for putting on this really excellent tournament. There were a few hiccups here and there, as most tournaments do have, but for a free online tournament where there was a $1,000 payout, that's pretty sick. While the tournament was cut short due to complications with applications such as, I don't know, not to name any names, but a challenge. And so initially scheduled 8 rounds of Swiss was cut down to just 6 rounds. Anyways, a lot of really cool and really fun decks were played inside of this tournament. A lot of rogue contenders and meta decks that really showed up. While I won't be breaking down the tournament meta inside of this video, I will be going over the deck that I personally played and thought would be the best choice for me. If you guys are new to the channel or like this video, make sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button to see more content from your boy. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the deck profile. 3, 2, 1... and cool transition. So inside of Master Duel here, I've got a couple decks that I've been working on building, but the one that I took to Swag Kage's tournament was Tri-Brigade Lyrilusc. So hopping into the deck profile, we have one copy of DD Crow. This is a searchable interruption and hand trap inside of your deck that you can get off of something like Cobalt Sparrow or Recital Starling. Really niche and doesn't come up too often, but there's no reason not to play it because you can search it, so it's really good. Plus level 1 Winged Beast, you can use it for material if you really need to. Next, we have 3 copies of Cobalt Sparrow. Cobalt Sparrow is interesting because you don't want to see 3 of it, but you have to run 3 of it. What I mean by that is if you see multiple copies of this card, it gets kind of bricky, but if this card is special summoned from your main combo that's paired with Warbler, then you get so much card advantage, and it turns out to be a very good extender inside of the deck. In addition, we have Sapphire Swallow. Speaking of good extenders, this card's one of the better extenders in your deck. You can use this card to summon out another level 1 and itself for free XYZs after you've summoned like a Recital Starling or have any Winged Beast monster on the field. It doesn't have to be a Lyrilusc monster, which makes this card particularly potent if you have something like Zamorg, or let's say you have Shurigout and you have just this card and another card in hand. Then you have 3 copies of Turquoise Warbler. Turquoise Warbler is your best starter of the deck because you can special summon from the hand or you can special summon from the graveyard. It's a Cyber Dragon as well, so you can special summon out for free, which is really great. And once again, similar to all the Lyrilusc monsters, it enables really powerful rank 1 plays. Next, we have 3 copies of Tri-Brigade Nerval. This is one of your better extenders and follow-up plays if you get hand trapped or Nibiru'd, etc. In addition, it's really good to search off of something like Cobalt Sparrow, and also really easy to search off of Recital Starling. So you're never going to not see this card, but you definitely want to run it at 3 because, hey, level 1 Winged Beast, probably really good inside of this deck. Next, we have 2 copies of Beryl Canary. Beryl Canary is really good inside of this deck, and I argue you probably could run it at 3, but it's kind of reminds me of Fusion Destiny in a way where it's like, if you start off with this card, you can sure end on a pretty formidable board with some of your rank plays. But if you use this card as an ender, as like a little icing on the cake after your combo, it's even more powerful. It's a great card to follow up with because you have so many powerful rank monsters to go into, and Beryl Canary just enables all of that for practically free. One of the better cards to get off of it is 2 copies of Celestine Wagtail. Celestine Wagtail, it says if this card is special summon, you can add a Lyrilusc spell or trap to your hand. Most of the time you're going to be using Bird Call. In this deck, we're using Bird Call. Then for our hand trap lineup, we have 3 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom, and 3 Nibiru. I think 3 Maxi and 3 Ash Blossom are required not only for this tournament, but also for Master Duel in general. But Nibiru the Prime Being could probably be skipped. I just wanted to have it just in case I ran into any complicated combo decks, and it's also a pretty good card to draw off a Max C. Just in case your opponent's feeling extra ballsy, you can drop this on them, and that's pretty good. It does have somewhat of a conflict with something like Turquoise Warbler, but turns out a 3,000 body ain't that bad either. Back onto the monsters, we have 1 copy of Tri-Brigade Kuros, 1 copy of Kit, and 3 copies of Tri-Brigade Fractal to really round out our Tri-Brigade list. Again, these cards are really powerful inside this deck because you can use them going first or as a follow-up. So let's say your Lyrilusc stuff gets negated. Well, then you can use these cards as a follow-up to still have a presence on the board. Or you can start off with the Tri-Brigade cards and then use the Lyrilusc cards if these things get interrupted, or just add on to your board. Very, very powerful stuff. I'm running 1 copy of Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds. This card's really good inside this deck for obvious reasons, but I'm running it over Mist Valley Apex Avian because I feel like it's good going first or second, but they have to address this card to go on with their plays anyways, so That's why we're only running this card and not our Apex Avian. Onto the spell cards, 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. Triple Tactics Talent is really underrated in the side of this game, I think, because everyone's running Max C, everyone's running Ash Blossom, and you don't always get to choose if you're going first or second, so why not have a card that can pretty much do both? So that I think is really good, and again, like I said, really underrated. This card was very powerful for me this weekend, and I recommend running it while you're climbing ladder as well. 3 copies of Bird Call. So Bird Call is an interesting rota, as it is not only a search to your hand, but also a Foolish Burial and Send to the Grave. Very powerful for enabling your combos, and if you have essentially no other cards in hand, you can search something like Barrel Canary, like we mentioned earlier, and have XYZ plays for free. A lot of times you're using this card to fix your hand, but it boosts the consistency of this deck quite a bit. And then lastly, we have 3 copies of Twin Twisters. Twin Twisters is interesting to me because I feel like it was the wrong choice for this weekend. I put it in there because I was afraid a little bit of these best of ones and playing against back row decks where I didn't necessarily have an out to their skill drains or other annoying cards. But Twin Twisters definitely underperformed. I saw it in multiple copies all weekend, and I really wished it was a better card. I think the discarding effect's fine. I think its overall applications are fine, and I think it's okay in the deck. But this weekend, it definitely underperformed, and I probably will replace it going forward, just in case. Next, we have the Utopic Future package and 1 copy of F-Zero Utopic Future and 1 copy of Utopic Draco Future. They're really powerful cards that add a lot of pressure onto your opponent. We have 2 copies of Recital Starling. This is going to be a primary material and searcher for your deck, getting things like DD Crow, Nerval, Sapphire Swallow. Then we have 1 copy of Assembled Nightingale. Assembled Nightingale is oddly one of, if not the best XYZ inside the deck, because it turns out when you get to hit your opponent for 800 3 times or 4 times for 1,000, that's really powerful. And considering this card has self-protection, it not only threatens that kind of damage, but also threatens a Zeus right after it. And if your opponent doesn't have an answer to this, you could feasibly sit on this card for a couple turns and then Zeus whenever you have time. Keeping spirit with the rank 1s, we have Ensemble Robin. This card is a really interesting boss monster because if you don't have a lot of things to go into, it's a pretty neat backup plan that you can have, or it's a nice combo finisher that you can put on the board. A lot of times, similar to something like Barrier Staff to the Stormwinds, or even something like Ensemble Nightingale, this card, they have to answer pretty much directly because this card has a non-once per turn effect where it can bounce special summon monsters back to the hand. So obviously, if they're bounced from the extra deck back to the hand, they're bounced to the extra deck. So this card's very powerful and can be really threatening if you don't have a lot. Next, we have an interesting choice for me, and that's going to be the Promenade Rush, either or. I wanted to test out this card this weekend because I wanted to see how good it was with ripping apart opponents' boards. You can target a spell or trap your opponent controls and shuffle it back into the deck. I think that's really powerful. It's like a rank 1 unicorn for this deck, and turned out to be pretty good. And you can use it for things like Zeus. You can also use it for things like Utopic Draco Future. So turned out to be pretty good. Would I replace it with something else? I'm not quite sure. Next, we have 1 copy of Downer Magician and 1 copy of a Zeus. This card was great all weekend. One of the most powerful cards ever printed inside of Yu-Gi-Oh! Definitely be running this inside of a deck that can run even 1 XYZ monster, because typically speaking, you're going to be gaining so much value and so much threatening presence on the board with your Divine Arsenal, AA Zeus, Sky Thunder. On to the Link monsters, 1 copy of Almirage. This card's used to fix bad hands. 1 copy of Ancient Warrior's Oath, Double Dragons. This card's really good for putting pressure on your opponents. A quick effect bounce back to the hand is very solid, especially against extra deck monsters. And we have 1 copy of Tri-Brigade Farragut. Farragut was also kind of good for fixing bad hands, and let's say you have an Omen on the field you need to get rid of. But typically, most of the time, you're going to be linking this off for something like Simorgh, Bird of Sovereign. This card is one of the reasons why this deck is so good. It's a free link 3 for the deck, and you can summon things out like Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds for absolutely free. And you can summon it from deck or hand, so even if you brick with this card, which, by the way, you're probably putting it back with Farragut anyways, you can special summon it out from your hand regardless. Or if you already have this card out, you can summon something like Cobalt Sparrow to gain card advantage on your opponent's turn, and that's just phenomenal. This card is very strong, and it's 2,400 bodies, so it's pretty dang big. Lastly, for the deck, we have 2 copies of Tri-Brigade Shurik. This card was amazing all weekend, and I'm very happy that I ran 2 of them. One thing that I think this deck struggles with is long-term grinding. Like, yes, you have to manage your resources effectively anytime you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, but this deck really does want to aim to put out a lot of locks and a lot of really powerful, tough situations for your opponent. And I think having 2 Shurig really allows me to grind past what other previous deck lists could not. Essentially why I wanted to run 2 is because if I ever wound up being in a simplified game state, I wanted to have a backup option, and being a 3000 banish backup option is pretty solid. If I'm ever in a top decking situation and I see a Tri-Brigade monster like Fractal or Karis, Kit, or Nerval later in the game, he ends up being very solid. In addition to that too, he's really good turns 2, 3, 4, and however long, because the more you're able to special summon out himself and other Winged Beast and Beast Warrior beast monsters, he can get those banishes out. 2 copies for that, because you usually will be going through one of them just to clear something on the board, and the other one is used after either to close out the game, or it's used because you have very limited material and you definitely need to get back into the game somehow. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this deck profile. I had a lot of fun playing this weekend at Swag Kage's tournament. I really want to do more of these things, and I kind of have this competitive itch with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel at the moment. But if you guys like this video, make sure to leave it a like, and if you want to see more, please subscribe. I have a lot more videos coming on the pipeline, so stay tuned that if you would like to. And once again, I don't necessarily recommend this for exclusively free-to-play players, as it's kind of pricey with all these ultra rares and secret rares. But if you do want to see a deck that I think is really powerful as well and run some similar cards, then make sure to hit that like button. If we get this video to 50 likes, I'll drop that free-to-play deck as soon as possible. But anyways, that's all I have to say about this. Thank you so much to Swag Kage for hosting this tournament. His links in the description will be down below. But yeah, I will talk to you guys later. Peace out.